Welcome to Authentic Influence Live. This is Anthony Chansamove from Simple Creative Marketing. And today we are talking about how to make your sales more predictable with a CRM. If you don't know what a CRM is, you're going to find out. I invited someone who really has a lot of information and knowledge about this area to the show. So we have with us today, it's Jeroen Corthout, who is the director. Let me get all the information here. So the co-founder, CEO of Salesflare, an intelligent CRM solution built for SMBs selling B2B. So definitely talking our language, and most popular with agencies and fast-growing startup companies. So Salesflare itself was founded when Jeroen and his co-founder. Now this is where I'm going to get caught up. How do I say this name, Jeroen? What's that?
My co-founder's name is Lieven.
Lieven. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. So Lieven wanted to follow up the leads for their software company in an easier way. They didn't like to keep track of their leads manually. I know that feeling. And built Salesflare, which pulls customer data together automatically, and then actively helps you to follow up. Okay, and I really like this bit. It's now the most popular CRM on Product Hunt and top rated on review platforms like G2 for its ease of use and automation features. Jeroen, welcome to Authentic Influence.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay, so now are you based in Belgium or are you somewhere else right now?
No, I'm based in Belgium. So I'm in Antwerp, Belgium. It's the second biggest city of Belgium, a bit above Brussels. I mean, most people know Brussels, I suppose. Antwerp is sort of the number 2 city. It's in Flanders, where we speak Dutch. And it's also the second biggest port of Europe after Rotterdam in the Netherlands.
Fantastic. Okay. What's one thing about Belgium that most people don't know?
Most people don't know. Most people know the beer and the waffles and the chocolate, yes, and all that. I'll say something about Antwerp. Sure. It's the diamond center of the world. So 80% of the diamonds in the world pass through a little street just next to our office, actually. It's a heavily guarded street with more than 1,000 cameras pointed all over the place. And wow, we're also nowadays a cocaine center of Europe, which is also
for real?
Yeah, it's a great achievement as well. Our port is so big and well connected that it's popular with the cocaine traffickers too.
Now that's a really interesting fact. Okay, not the reason why I'm going to Belgium. Okay, so fantastic. Let's talk about just your journey. I love that you have the CRM. I've been a customer and I've been using Salesflare for a number of years now and I still use it. So I haven't done the switch. I haven't gone over to. I'm not big enough to go onto the larger platforms that are out there, and we can talk about that in a moment. But take us back to that time where you and Lieven were really, trying to track your leads, right? Like, and what were the challenges? Yeah, what were the challenges that you were going through with that? Where you then decided, hey, we could probably create some kind of product or software that could do this. And why did you decide to create Salesflare?
Yeah, we just came back from a big conference in Vegas. It was an IBM conference, and we sold our software there to IBM customers because ours was compatible with the software they were having. And we had so many leads. I think it was like 110, 130 good leads. And all we had to do is close them. Now, that wasn't as easy as it sounds, because these people were in the business intelligence software space, and they typically take a lot of time to do things, like to get onto a new project. So selling something to them is a lot of follow-up. And I had been working myself for a bunch of years with Salesforce, and I knew that wasn't really a great tool to organize yourself sales-wise. It's a great tool for management. It's for big companies. You can build anything you like in it. But it's not really built for the end users to do sales follow-up. So we tried a bunch of other systems. We found some better systems that were more directed towards sales follow-up, more sales CRMs. But we still got disappointed every time, in the sense that we sort of gave up on each system after a bit, because we had to keep up with an enormous amount of data input. There were all these little things we had to put in on a daily almost hourly, minute basis. Every little thing we did, every little piece of information we saw about a customer, like they had an email signature, we copied some pieces into the CRM. They copied in a new person, like, oh, this is another person. Who is that person? Put in the CRM. We just called them, put in the CRM. And if we did that well, we saw the system was working, but we just couldn't keep up. It was like these systems they were great systems, but coming with expectations that we couldn't fulfill. We didn't feel like we were sort of these CRM robots or something. So then we actually saw that the work we were doing was automatable, and that's something we like. So we saw that the information that we were putting into those systems was already someplace. Like if it's in an email signature, why can't it get to the CRM? If that person is in your emails and it has a name and an email there, why can't that contact automatically be created? Why can't we automatically pull in information about companies from company databases? Why can't we integrate meetings from the calendar and calls from the phone? Why can't we get email tracking in there, which then connects to web tracking? So basically, we saw all this data in different places. And we said, what if we make a system that pulls that together for you, sort of magically, but is still a system where you keep control, and that is very easy to manage, so that it's not we like make the magic a bit more tangible and controllable, so to speak. And
Yeah,
that's what Salesflare does today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I've noticed that where it, I'm looking at my, I like the embed within Gmail, for example, and then I can see, when I'm emailing a prospect or I've had a conversation, and then I pull up their, the little the add-on or whatever it is inside of Gmail, I can actually see all these data populate automatically, and that really just a massive time saver, especially when I'm having the call as well. Like I'm not having to dig through multiple systems and past emails and all this kind of things. That's really awesome. Now, coming into the product market and battling sort of the giant, which is Salesforce, what was your sort of thought around how to compete with a giant like that in the industry, and how did you guys approach that?
At first, we thought we were going to build a complementary system to something like Salesforce. So we would build like support people have support platforms. We were going to build a sales platform. We thought it's a bit stupid that the salesperson cannot get an adapted program for them that actually helps them sell a sales tool, sales platform, and support people get that, and marketing people have their marketing automation platforms and all that. But we tried to sell that, and nobody else thought that was a good idea. Basically, they said, well, indeed, our salespeople don't use Salesforce, but we want to fix Salesforce. We don't want to get another system. That doesn't make sense to us. And they were also a bit like, well, the sync is also not going to happen really great. And so there was a big issue to be solved, but nobody wanted to solve it that way. And then we figured that actually what we built was very attractive to smaller companies who are much more looking for practical solutions, also when it comes to sales, like pragmatic stuff that works, where you get something because you get something directly out of it. Like you use a system and you follow up your sales better, you get better sales. A small company understands that way better than a big one. In a big company, everything is a bit more abstract. So we shifted to small companies. So then at that point, we had to compete with companies like Salesforce. Now, in the small business segment, it's pretty easy to compete with Salesforce because their system is really not adapted to small companies. So actually, most of our larger customers, because we do small, medium-sized companies, so more like the medium-sized ones, there we usually compete with Salesforce, and it's relatively easy. In the smaller companies, there's a lot of offering nowadays as well. We mostly compete with things like HubSpot or Pipedrive. Still there, we are the only system that is built the way I described, where it pulls the information together, offers it to you. make sure that you have everything there without having to input anything manually. I mean, you can create a company, but then all the rest starts happening for you. And a lot of companies who get frustrated with something like HubSpot at some point, not just with the software, but also with the pricing, they come to us then.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up just the difference. You're starting to talk about the difference with, say, a HubSpot solution. Can you elaborate on why it's important for especially small business to have an easy to use CRM rather than to go to something that's gigantic, maybe bloated, maybe hundreds of functionalities in there that you're not going to really use, and you'll probably get overwhelmed. But then you're paying for that development cost, right? So what have I mean? Yeah, what would you say is the reason that it's a good idea to switch to something that's a smaller CRM like Salesflare?
Yeah. Well, most companies just want to. They actually, when they would think about it, they only have one big objective, and then some side stuff. Like the objective might be following up sales better, so you sell more. Like tracking the pipeline better. A lot of companies lose a lot of money by not doing that well, and if they can do it well, then literally, I mean, I thinking of a customer now that this is just 3 sales guys, and they earn $1 million more per year just because of better follow up. Before that, it was not a complete mess. They're quite organized guys, but it was a bit of a mess. And now that I have everything up in order, they could just sell so much more because they sell at the right times. They don't forget to follow up. They still remember what was discussed. All these kind of things at scale. Now, next to that, there might be other stuff you want to do, but it's not the critical thing. The critical thing is to get your sales team to use the system. If they don't use the system, well, some of the secondary objectives you have might still work, but the primary objective in most cases won't work anymore. And that's really a pity. So what I would do as a small company is figure out what is the main thing we want to achieve, and then based on that, choose the right CRM for you. If it's on the sales side, then you better look for something that your sales team is going to use. And then if you need some integrations with whatnot, like landing pages or an email marketing tool or whatever, those are not difficult. Nowadays, there's so many options. Zapier is probably the most user-friendly one to just connect things the way you want to connect them. And getting something that presents itself as an all-in-one that is extremely expensive if you then also use the all-in-one. If you don't make use of the different parts of the system, then it sort of defeats the all-in-one offering perspective, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then you also definitely shouldn't go for that.
Yeah, so it's really understanding what's your primary objective and then finding the solution that helps you get to achieve that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sales process, because obviously having a CRM is a good idea, right? But the CRM really should match what your sales process is, and really also should match what your buyers want in terms of a sales process. So I've read some content that you put out there around that. So can you talk a little bit about mapping and creating the sales process and some tips around how to go about that?
Yeah, I would generally say think from the perspective of the customer. Think, how can we make this the easiest on them? Like if they are in point A, and point A is they have a problem to which you may or may not have the solution, and you want to get them to point B or not if they're not a good match, where you deliver them that solution, whether that's a product or a service or whatever, it doesn't matter. In between that, you have a sales process, but like you said, it's actually much more of a buying process, because what you're the guide as a salesperson from point A to point B. It might be that in between you decide that you're not on the right track with each other because the customer does not really want your solution, or they don't have the budget for it, or it's not for now, it's for later, or something like that. And you might want to disqualify them. But otherwise, like along the steps of the way, you guide them to get closer to where they want to be. And you need to think from their perspective, like, if we were to work together, how would we get from this one point to the other point? How can the salesperson help me decide that this is the right solution? Value wise, price wise, pragmatically, how will it fit in? All these kind of things. That's what the buying process or the sales process should be built around. Now, if you look at that from the salesperson's perspective, you sort of, well, as a salesperson, you take the perspective of the customer, but then you try to also turn it into a series of actionable steps for you and the buyer together, so that it's super clear when you're guiding someone. You can say, okay, you're at point A, we're going to I'm gonna take away the B here at the end. We're going to B, and then we're going to C, and after C it's D, and then if all is good, we go to E, and you buy the thing. And if you know very well what these different steps are, then it's much more effective and efficient to guide that customer from the one step to the other, because it's really clear to you. You can make it really clear to them as well. Plus, if you are talking to a large series of prospects, then it's also much simpler to say, okay, this guy is at C, this guy is at B, this guy is at D, where you always know, like, okay, if the person is at D, we need to get them to E. That just makes everything so much clearer and more organized, so you can effectively do that guidance at scale.
Yeah, I really like the linear process you've laid out. My question is, sometimes sales processes don't go linear, right? Sometimes, particularly if you're dealing with SMB or the sales cycle is much longer, right? So maybe it's 6 months or whatever it may be. How do you, or what do you do to, I guess, keep the relationship going, and not have every follow-up be, how's that decision? Like, really kind of force the client to make a decision when perhaps they need to go and have a conversation with 20 people or 10 people in their organization or whatever it may be. What's your experience with that? Or I guess a lot of your customers will be using it in that way. So I'm just curious, what are your sort of thoughts around longer sales cycles and how to ensure that what do you do if it's not an A, B, C situation and it's actually, like you say, maybe it's A, B, C, and then you're jumping back to B because of something that was missing, how do you manage that?
I think it's mainly applying a lot of empathy next to the organizational skills I just talked about. It's really trying to understand the customer. Like, okay, you're talking to this guy, but who are the other people who are involved? What did they find important? What's the whole context for the thing you're gonna do together? Is it part of a bigger momentum or a bigger initiative or whatever? How does that look? What pushes it forward? What makes it that hasn't happened yet? I would really try to understand all these things. Try to understand if you, like you said, they still have to discuss it with other people. Who do they have to discuss it with? When are they planning on discussing that? Is there anything they need from you to have an easier discussion? All these kind of things. If you know these things better, then you don't need to follow up with emails like any news or so. You can really position yourself as the person who wants to make it happen together with them and is there to do whatever it takes.
I really like that. I really like, making the connection point or the email, how's that project going, or what, what are you, is there anything that we can do to help you achieve the outcome, and really be, that extra support for the client to actually achieve something, because that's what you're a solution to a problem, right? So I really like how you sort of put that into perspective. Now, the topic of the conversation today is how to make your sales more predictable with a CRM. So how do we do that, Jeroen?
Yeah, so what we talked about so far is one part of the equation. So you can have your overview. You have a set sales process from which you can deviate, but you know very well like every prospect is here, and it might be that things are going to work out slightly differently, but at least you have a plan. That's definitely one very important thing to have. Most people will build this as the basics. Like if you first start and you only have a spreadsheet, that's probably what you're gonna make. You're gonna make like a thing like, okay, we're gonna sell this to that company, and this is the contact person, and then there's a column that says probably something like, this is the last contact we had. So the pipeline sort of view is the basics, but then there's also, like I just teased already, is when we were last in contact. It's very hard to keep in a spreadsheet, the sort of communication timeline you have with a customer. So people mostly just put the last contact, what was it, those kind of things. What you ideally want is the full range of communication you've been having, because then you can go back and say, okay, what was discussed here, what was discussed there, what was discussed there, when did we last discuss, when do I need to follow up. So that is where a CRM already makes a huge difference versus a spreadsheet, is a sort of way of having that timeline. Almost impossible to keep it in a spreadsheet. Some people start putting comments on a cell, and then they have a history on the cell, but it's horrible. So that's two. In our system, it's best represented. Well, there's a timeline on each company, which is automatically filled based on emails, calls, meetings, web tracking, email tracking, all these kind of things, notes you put. But then you also have this on the general level in the notification center. So the notification center gives you an idea of what's going on. If you scroll through that, you see like, okay, this guy just did this, I just got this email, this guy went to the website. And this also enables you then to pick up at the right times. So if you see that somebody's on your website, good reflexes, take the phone, call them and say, hey, so, did you discuss with John already? What did he think? Are you guys okay with the pricing? I mean, depends on where they are, of course. So that's number two. So there's like the pipeline view, the sort of the timeline view, which could be a notification center also in a unified way. And then third is reminders, is extremely important. So in our system, that's tasks. Tasks are ways to define what you're going to do, and you can set when you're going to do it. So, and then you get a reminder, which you get in the notification center. You get it on your phone, on your computer if you have notifications on, or you can see it in the task screen where you can look like, what do I have to do today? If you take these three things together, you're basically, where is each prospect? What happened? And three, what do I need to do? Then you sort of have the complete overview. That's when you sort of nailed the three different parts of what it means to follow up with a customer successfully. Well, next to that, obviously, you also have information, which what some people think a CRM is, address book information, but I think that's totally secondary. Like, what is the phone number of the person, and what is the company address, and all these kind of things. We also automate that largely because we don't think that's where you should be spending your time. You need it somehow, but it's not what managing a relationship is all about. It's not about keeping that phone number or something. That's something that robots can do for you.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So just recapping, it's where the prospect is in their journey. Then we're looking at what happens, or what has happened already, and what's happening, and then also what action is required from you or your team to move it forward. And sort of that's really what you're doing with the tool. And as you say, it's not really about what's the LinkedIn URL and phone numbers and these sort of things, which of course you need those, but it's not.
It's useful. I mean, it's if if you want to go to their LinkedIn or you want to call them, it's good that it's
Yeah.
there, but the system can also keep that for you. And it's just stuff you built on. It's not necessarily what you're doing or so, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Now, you also talk about sales quotas, and I'm just curious about your thoughts around sales quotas. How do you actually, what's a good sales quota versus a bad sales quota? And how do you set targets that are realistic, I suppose?
Yeah. Well, realistic is already good. And I would say then also make it a little challenging. There's nothing fun about a sales quota that is realistic, but also like, well, I'm gonna achieve that anyway, sort of sales quota, because then there's no challenge for the salesperson, and why would they even do their best? The nice thing is if you put it slightly higher, something they can really work towards. But that's on the top level sales quota. What I definitely also do, because these top level sales quota, you're like your yearly target or something. It's great, something you can work towards, have bonuses towards, and all those kind of things. But I would also define input level sales quota, where you define how many leads you're going to generate per week, how many deals you're going to close that week or month. I mean, depends a bit where you want to put it. That way you have some short-term things you can strive towards. It's much more motivating because you can quickly see the progress there. You can see yourself achieving things, and if you only have that big goal, then that achievement is very delayed. You don't have a lot of satisfaction, and it's really important for you as a person that you can have this continuous feeling of I'm going somewhere. We actually do this across the whole company, not just in sales. We have these, we call it habits, that we work on. So on a consistent basis, we work and we provide input and we improve stuff, to then at the end of the year, be able to look back and also look at the results, the number results. Like, this is how we want to lower our churn. This is how we want to get more trials. This is how we want to, that we also achieve that. And if we just put the number forward, we're never going to achieve it, because we don't have direction and we don't have that daily striving towards it. But when you have this sort of this, it could be daily, could be weekly, could be monthly, sort of habits, input level quota, I would say, probably say in sales, it's a good thing to keep up the spirits and to probably overshoot your goal. Because if you set this at the right level, you're doing a really good job, then you're probably in the end gonna do way better than you thought you would.
I really like that. I'm curious, Jeroen, where did you learn that? Like, where did you learn it was more effective to focus on habits rather than goals?
In sales, it's sort of how can I say? It's a public secret. For ourselves, it's just something we noticed at some point when we were doing a yearly review. We looked at all the things we said we were going to do, and then we compared to what we actually did, and we saw that when we put goals like the habit style, like where we said like we're going to, for instance, create I think at that point 3 features a month or so. We would actually do that, and if we would say we're going to grow our trials by X%, then we didn't do that because that was just too vague and it was not something we could do. Of course, there's a way to create these trials, and if you then say, okay, consistently we're going to do this to get these trials, then that makes it way easier to actually start performing.
Yeah, I really like the ability to unpack what's the actual driver or the trigger for the behavior that creates the result. And I think it's a different way of thinking, because I know a lot of, in the startup world, we look at what's the North Star, what's the key goal, and we're always looking at these goals and these numbers and these, I would love to have 110% growth on month and month and these sort of things. But what you're saying is, well, that's all nice and fluffy, but at the end of the day, if you really look at what is your team doing on a daily basis, that will dictate what the result will become potentially.
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's just the same with many things. If you wanna be more sportive, then go running every few days and set the target there. If you want to be lose weight, you need to control your food on a daily basis. If you want to become smart, you need to read on a daily basis. I mean, it's just logical. And somehow in business, we sometimes think like if we put this really big goal at the end of the year, it's gonna happen. Well, that's not how it works.
Yeah, sometimes the inspiring goal does something else to us psychologically. It doesn't actually inspire us. It makes us do something else. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Let's say if we're talking about losing weight, at the end of the year, I'm gonna weigh that many kilos. It's not something you're gonna achieve.
Yeah, but you can say I'll do 10 push-ups a day for the next 60 days. So
yeah, that doesn't make you lose weight, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Abs are made in the kitchen, they say. Let's switch over to content marketing, because the one thing that's really been, I've observed since I first found out about Salesflare is just how much effort you put into content marketing. So what have you learned about content marketing, and how do you do content that doesn't suck and it actually produces leads for your business?
Yeah. Oh, we learn a lot of stuff over time. A part of it is what we focus on in terms of content. We've had all kinds of strategies with that. In the beginning, we would write more hype content, like things that would attract attention and make people talk about us. And I think that might have made sense at that time in our sort of growth journey. Then we started focusing on writing things that were interesting to our audience. So to get the eyeballs of our audience on our blog, we have some posts that pull an enormous amount of traffic. Now the thing is, these posts that pull that traffic, they don't create a lot of leads because they're so unrelated to what we do. They're really like almost cold leads. So then we started shifting towards more sales related topics. And it's things you can do with Salesflare, like things that are searched a lot, but that somehow you can do something with Salesflare with. And then so we write like, how do you build a sales pipeline? And then we show how you have a sales pipeline in Salesflare, this kind of things. And lately we've also been focusing a lot, going even more bottom of funnel on CRM comparison posts and all that. Because those are much more likely to convert, but we're running out of those again. So we'll probably go back to sales topics soon. But we're focusing our content very much on things related to our product, just because we can put a lot of interesting content out there. But if it doesn't generate leads, then we're also sort of wasting our time. It's nice for people reading it and all, but it's not bringing us business. Now, how to make content that doesn't suck? That is a difficult thing. Well, actually, the bar is quite low, so in that sense, it's not too difficult. But a lot of people have jumped into content marketing as if it was going to solve all their problems, and they've walked into many of the pitfalls I just described, like just writing content to generate traffic but not really getting leads, but mainly trying to do this at some sort of scale without paying a lot of money. So what ends up happening is that there's copywriters writing about topics they don't know anything about for a low price. So what they do is they quickly look on the internet to find out what other copywriters basically wrote about the topic. They digest that, they turn it into a post real quickly and throw that back on the internet, which means that a lot of the content when you start searching is pretty crappy because it's just copywriters who quickly read what other copywriters wrote and then rehashed it. It's like you take a bunch of garbage and then shred it and then make something else again, and then it's still garbage. And it's a real pity. But it's also a big opportunity for anyone who wants to do proper content marketing. Is just define a topic you want to write about and see am I knowledgeable in this on this topic, or is there someone else I know who could write about this? Not picking a copywriter unless it's something about content marketing also, then and they know a lot about it, then that's great. But if it's about sales, get a sales expert, get that sales expert write something, then maybe structure or clean up the text if necessary. But then you actually have content with a body that has a story that teaches valuable things, and that's what people are looking for nowadays. So combine that with really focusing on search intent, making sure that what people are searching for and what you're writing is very well aligned, and sort of make it like a cold email, let's say, like it has a subject line which covers what they're looking for, and then a little text that teases, and then when they click, it immediately reinforces that message and sort of sells the rest of the article to them, and then break down what they're looking for in a logical way. Don't entirely focus it on sort of SEO key phrases or something, but make it something that they'll want to ingest. And then somewhere tease your product in there. So it can be used to solve a part of the issue. And I think at that point you've made a compelling lead generating article.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the articles on your site. So you talked about search intent. How much effort do you put into sort of keyword research? Are you using tools like Ahrefs or some other tool to do that?
Yeah, we're using Ahrefs. We have a whole set of keywords that we define that are interesting to us. Sometimes we research other ones. When we think about writing an article, it's first like, is there enough volume? And then we start looking like, okay, what are some very related keywords there? Can it be grouped into a post? Does it make sense to group it into a post? Those are all things you can figure out just by using Ahrefs and using a bit of Googling. And then start figuring out what are people looking for really when they type this. So the best way is just typing it in Google and see what answers you get, because the answers that are at the top should normally reflect what people are looking for. Otherwise, they wouldn't rise to the top. But then you just aim to do that better, which is usually not too difficult. So.
Yeah, I agree. There's a couple of really good points you talked there about just the content quality and really, people or writers or content writers and copywriters regurgitating stuff that's already on page one. That there's going to be. I don't know about you, but I kind of see a future in the next 5 years where Google is going to just see AI content writing AI content and it's just competing with itself. And like that's really what these tools do, right? Like they basically analyze a page and they go, here's all the keywords that are on there, here's the content length. And then you need to produce something similar to that. Where your content is different, what I've recognized is, as you say, you try and embed within that real actionable stuff. Like you might have templates, email templates that you can utilize. You might have, here's how to manage your sales, your deal flow within a CRM. So there's really relevant information there for someone who's interested in the sales journey, right? So that's really good, a good way to approach that. We're going to wrap up in a moment. I just wanted to go back to something you said earlier around skills. You talked about for an effective salesperson, you need to be organized. You need to have empathy. Are there any other skills or traits that you see are common amongst really great salespeople?
I think those are the two major ones. If you'd ask me, it's really when people lack that empathy or even the drive to be empathic. It's really hard to sell well. Like imagine the counter situation where somebody just jumps on a call, takes their deck, starts running through it, doesn't even ask you questions, and then says, "Is this interesting to you?" That's not how you would ever like sell to a friend or so. You would talk to that friend, try to really understand. Oh, so you have this issue. Oh, maybe like and do you want a solution that can do this, or is it more like? And they say, no, I'm more looking like because stuff, and you really explore the issue together. You see what the context is, and like why didn't they buy it yet, and many salespeople just jump that step, which then makes that they're very ineffective. And then the organizational skill, well, taking that and pulling that to a whole other level, in the sense like they're doing that with tens of people at the same time, maybe hundreds. That's where you really become productive as a salesperson. So I think these two things are key. Next to that, probably liking words
Hey.
is a handy one. Nowadays, probably also for people in the audience, writing skills are really really important. A lot of things are written. It can be emails, it can be proposals, it can be internal chat, but that's not applicable to sales here, of course. But it could be chat that you're chatting with your customer. Being able to write something becomes more important. Back in the day, it was those who were verbally well speaking, and I think to a certain extent, somebody who's good at that can still sell. But that requires going to lots of meetings, of course. I think the written skills are becoming more important here as well, in this modern world.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing how to speak to someone, how to ask great questions as you do, and then also how to convey that in written form, really really strong skills. Uh, if you had to, I don't know if this is even on your roadmap, but if you were to start a new SaaS product tomorrow, and you didn't have an existing audience, right? So different product in a different industry, what would you be doing in your first 30 days to acquire users?
I would first try to find out who the users were. So I would do a lot of customer interviews, try to understand that what I have in mind, whether they'd be interested in such a thing, why they didn't get something like that yet, what they're using now, what's not good about that, what is good about that, why they actually got that over something else. That's where I would start. I wouldn't focus on getting users like in the sense of selling in these first 30 days, maybe even 60 days. I would really try to understand the topic really deeply. At the end of each conversation, ask them like, are there other people I could talk about this topic with, that you know? Like, could you connect me with 3 people? Expand that audience. Try to get more and more knowledge. Shape what it is you have in mind towards their context and their solutions, the solutions they're looking for, the problems they're facing. And then actually that group that you have interviewed, you will know which people are the right ones to sell to once you have that product that you've been discussing with them.
And would you recommend some kind of framework like jobs to be done or some other, what kind of like, I'm interested about the questioning process, because it's, you know, as you know, asking the right question can get you closer to the objective. If you're asking questions that are wasting people's time or not really getting to the heart of
Yeah.
why. Yeah. So what do you have any frameworks or resources that you recommend people can learn those skills?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of jobs to be done, and actually the variant, my like jobs to be done in general. But I think I have it here behind me. Oh, there, demand side sales. It's a book by Bob Moesta, and he has this framework around the 4 forces that work on any buying decision, and a bunch of questions about like not just the buying decision, but also the buying decision before that, and all that. So really trying to understand like what was the four forces are the following. So there is point A and point B, right? You want to go from A to B. You're in A. There's something that holds you in A. That's inertia. It's something that keeps the current situation sort of attractive, makes that you don't want to change because somehow what you're locked in or you like something, whatever. Then there's a push also from the current situation because there's something that you hate about it. You want to get away. Then there's a pull from the point B, like the new promised land. It's somehow has this something is really attracting you towards it. That's the pull. And then there's also anxiety from going to that point because you're afraid that this or that might not work or might happen or whatever. And there's questions in there, I believe. At least I have a set of questions that I've been asking customers that probe towards all these different forces. And when you understand what they are, you can also more effectively work on them, which makes that you can shape your product or services in a way that, or your sales process maybe, but I mean it's not very separate from each other, but so that it's a more frictionless sale, let's say. But there's more to it. I think the whole context is extremely important, and a big part of the exercise is also figuring out what is going to be your initial target market. Like you try to make a slightly broader set of people you talk to, and you figure out like who did it really resonate with, who in this set of people I think have the highest chance. Were they from a specific sector? Were they in a specific position? Were they whatever? So you can then focus on those people in the beginning to sell to, because the better you focus, the higher your success rate, and the lower the effort versus results you'll have to you'll have in the beginning.
What was the name of the book again, Jeroen?
Demand Side Sales.
Demand Side Sales. Okay, yeah.
By Bob Moyes. I typed it in the chat.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes. It's all about the four forces, and I really like just really understanding the process of understanding the buyer better, or in this case, who your target audience really is, because I think there's a lot of time spent to trying to evaluate, and that's, we see that with a lot of startups, and I went through that journey as well, where we try and target everybody and say, hey, everyone's going to use a CRM, but really, when you're competing with everyone else, what makes you stand out is when you can say, well, we really support this particular type of customer in this particular type of way, which is what you're doing great with Salesflare. Okay, we're gonna say thank you for joining us today, Jeroen. It's been amazing.
Welcome.
My final question for you is, what's one thing that you do for your mental health?
A bunch of things. One thing, the thing that probably works best for me nowadays is running. Well, it's an extra thing. Sleeping is I would definitely also recommend.
Sleeping and running.
Yeah, no, giving a lot of attention to these things like sleeping and physical exercise really helps you to stay stable and awake and all that. Today is a bit of an off day because of a vaccine yesterday. But otherwise, I try to be there and sharp mentally every day. Not necessarily work crazy hours or something, but during the hours really be able to work. And I think giving a lot of attention to sleeping consistently, sleeping well, and there's a whole bunch of things you can do, and physical exercise, those things really help.
So when you say you run, is that like a short jog? Is that 10 kilometers? What type of running do you like to do?
I do 5 kilometers at the moment.
Okay.
So it's not, it's just 25 minutes or something that I run. It's not a long thing, but it keeps me it keeps me, how can I say, physically fit.
Yeah.
My rest heart rate is quite low. My concentration is there. All kind of things. So.
And when you're running, are you in silence, or are you running in a gym, or are you sort of going through nature and the streets? And
I live in a park here, so I just exit the
okay,
front door,
yeah,
and I do it in silence. I don't
yeah,
like doing it with music. Some people like that. I also take the running as a sort of challenge. I think even I get up and I have all these things in my head, and just the running sort of puts them into perspective because I'm suffering for a little, and then these things become small in the background. And I don't think with music it would be the same thing. It would just annoy me, I think.
yeah, yeah. I heard like David Goggins. I don't. You might know who he is. Yeah, he basically says you're cheating if you're listening to something while you're running. You want to be able to listen to your mind
Yeah,
and
yeah,
not avoid it. So I really love
it's
that.
true.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, mate. Appreciate you joining us today, and thank you for all the insights. For everyone listening, please head over to salesflare.com. And that's where you can go and check out the CRM software. Like I said, I've been using it for a number of years now, and definitely recommending it to others. There's a ton of resources on the blog. Jeroen has a podcast as well, where he's interviewing founders and other really cool people. So definitely go and check that out. Any last messages for the audience here?
No, not really. Indeed, Salesflare on salesflare.com, and if you want to get in touch with me, LinkedIn is the best place. You can send me a personal connection request with a message, please, because otherwise I won't know who you are. I will assume spam, but with a message, and I also will reply to you. We can have a chat.
That's right. Just tell him that you came from Authentic Influence, or mention Anth, and then he'll know exactly where you came from.
Exactly.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's it, everyone. We'll see you again real soon. And Jeroen, I hope you have a relaxing day and you recover from this vaccine hit that you had yesterday.
Thank you. This was fun.